I'm Kirsten Kiala with Cisco, and today we're talking about a trailblazer and an innovator in technology. I'm joined by journalist Ashley Vance, who's written a book on one of the most prolific innovators of our time, Elon Musk. Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
You've spent an unprecedented amount of time with Elon Musk. Give us kind of a glimpse into his life. What did you find most fascinating about him?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on. I mean, he lives a crazy lifestyle. First of all, he's running two companies at the same time and living in basically two cities at the same time. He splits his time between LA and Silicon Valley. He doesn't even have a house in Silicon Valley. He sort of surfs couches of his friends and stays at hotels. And, you know, he's a guy, you're getting emails at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., he sort of like never really shuts off. And I guess, you know, my biggest takeaway from all this was that he's probably the most driven guy I've ever run into. And I've interviewed a lot of these powerful CEOs. Elon seems super focused.
Did you get a sense for kind of what drives his thought process and idea generation?
Yeah, Elon, he comes from sort of a unique place. I mean, it sounds sort of silly, I think, to most people, but his number one goal is really to get the human species to Mars. So it's sort of this interesting starting point for an executive. And from there, that's where all these products build from. I mean, SpaceX, obviously, he's trying to reduce the price of rockets and space travel to make something like going to Mars feasible in the first place. He's trying to build the electric cars and solar panels. His goal is to ensure the survival of the human species.
You kind of talked about, you know, the Mars idea. He seems to have some of these crazy big ideas that, you know, don't really, aren't in the boundary of current technology or really any boundaries.
He always talks about going to the first principles, this idea of don't assume that you know anything, don't discount anything, let's go back and see if it's like physically possible and sort of run the numbers. And, you know, then he does these calculations and says, yes, this is possible. We'll do something like the Hyperloop. And then I think usually people sort of laugh at first, especially before he started proving himself. He'd come up with these ideas and people would say, oh, it's just Elon again. But now, you know, I think he's got a track record where he says he's going to do something like the Hyperloop. There's a good chunk of people who say, yeah, I bet he probably will.
So it sounds like he's almost someone who's never really satisfied.
It is this all or nothing sort of thing with him. When you look at what some of the other car makers had done with software in the car, they might have really nice entertainment systems or some cool new features. And when the Model S came, his thing was, how do we get rid of every single physical button in the car and put it all into this screen? How do we make this the biggest touchscreen anyone's ever seen? How do we essentially turn this car into a computer? We're not just gonna take baby steps, we're gonna go all the way.
What do you think other business leaders can really learn from his approach to innovation?
If you can create sort of this like mission for your company that's sort of like bigger than the products, the one thing that I noticed is that the engineers really seem to buy into that. They work as hard as they possibly can. They give their all to the company, and it creates this bond among the workforce. That's what's helped Tesla survive things like the bankruptcy. It's helped SpaceX have their first 3 rockets blow up. One thing as I was writing the book is if I was leading a company, I would want to try to tap into some of that. The other thing is the attention to detail. I don't know if I would want to live like he lives, but if I was running a company and I wanted to be the best at it, he knows everything that's going on with the products, with the business, with the marketing. I guess you could argue that it might go too far towards like micromanaging or something like that, but I mean, he knows everything that's going on at his companies. He essentially sort of like out-hustles everybody else.
What could you say is your one takeaway, your biggest takeaway from him in regards to innovation and technology, if you had to pick one thing that really stood out to you?
The one thing I go back to is that I think we're at this like really interesting time where software has been on this maturation path over about 50, 60 years, and it's really gotten good to where, you know, we used to have blue screens of death, and there's no way you would get in a car that was being run by software like a Google self-driving car. And now, literally, you know, around my house all the time, there's self-driving cars. And the hardware has improved dramatically. It's come down in cost. These electronics are so smart. And what I noticed with him is that he seems to have a knack for combining these two trends. The Tesla is a car, but it is this computer on wheels. It's sort of something we haven't seen before because of the software. And with his rockets, they look a lot like everybody else's rockets, but they're dramatically cheaper because of all the work they do inside with these sort of autonomous systems and combining software and hardware in new ways.
Thank you so much for your insight. We're really looking forward to reading the book.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it very much.
The book is called Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, and the Quest for a Fantastic Future.